All right, welcome back to Podcast PD. This is the part of the show that only lives on YouTube, as AJ and I are going to be recording episode 153 tonight. So if you are joining us on Facebook or through LinkedIn, feel free to come on over to podcastpd.com/live. That way we can definitely see your chats and comments while we're talking to Rich Czyz tonight. It's going to be an exciting conversation. Rich has a new book out, and AJ and I are going to dig into that with Rich. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, Christopher. I love this back behind the stage nonsense.
All right. I am going to, we'll do the show starting part, and we're going to have a great time with Rich tonight.
Can't wait, man. Let's do it.
All righty. Coming up on episode 153 of Podcast PD, AJ and I are excited to sit down with our friend, educator, and author, Rich Czyz. He's joining us to discuss his brand new book, Autopilot, Practical Productivity for School Leaders, a guide that addresses the real-world challenges administrators, like AJ, face and provides practical systems to help them lead with greater clarity, efficiency, and purpose. Let's start the show. This is Podcast PD, the show that provides you with anytime, anywhere professional development. Our conversations and guests will provide you with the learning you might get in a faculty meeting or on a PD day. Except you're going to have more fun with AJ Bianco and me, Chris Nesi. Let's start the show. What is going on, Podcast PD people? Chris Nesi back in the house with you. I'm at Mr. Nesi on Blue Sky, and I'm joined, as always, once a month by the podcast paisan, Mr. AJ Bianco. What's up?
That is quite the introduction this time around.
Hey, I'm getting ready for my winter public address announcing duties, so why not practice on you?
Oh, man, I appreciate it. And I feel the love. I feel the love. This once a month. I don't know. It's once a month thing.
I'm waiting for you to move closer to me.
I know. It feels good. Move closer. I ain't moving down that way. You got to move this way. There's a house down the block for sale if you'd like to come.
Yeah, I know what county you live in. I can't afford to live up there.
No. Neither can I.
How you been, buddy? How you been?
Dude, it's still November. Things have been moving along. The year is moving along, and it's still November. Somebody said something to me the other day. I was like, that was just last week. I was like, no, that was not last week. That was not last week. And then it was just like 3 days ago. And it was last week. But
I remember when we talked a month ago.
Yeah.
And we felt that October was super long.
Right.
I have not felt that way about November.
No, this has been quick. It's been a quick month, but it just seems like for example, let me just say this real quick. This past week, we had 3 days of half days for parent-teacher conferences. And the week before that, I guess I just blocked it out like that. We had that week, and automatically my brain's like, next week is half days because of Thanksgiving. So in my mind, I'm a week behind where I'm supposed to be. So like now that this week that we were recording is Thanksgiving week, I feel okay. But like that whole week, I was just like, this week doesn't exist. So it really played some games with me. So like that's why I felt long, but we're okay. Everything's good. People are in good spirits. Kids are in good spirits, and the learning goes on.
That's right. You know what else goes on?
Podcast PD goes on, baby.
Podcast PD, which I don't know, AJ, if you are keeping up with current events. We could certainly maybe talk about this with Rich as well when we bring him on in just a minute. But I think we're going to have to change the name of the podcast.
Sure. What do you got?
So Podcast PD, where PD stands for professional development.
Sure.
It is my understanding that we are no longer professionals as of July 2026. So
sure. Yeah. Our certification is
send your nominations in. What should we change the P in Podcast PD to starting next July?
Pathetic.
Pathetic development. AJ, that's not how we're going to get listeners.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
I appreciate that. Feedback at podcastpd.com. Let us know your thoughts. And certainly there's a conversation to be had around that. But a conversation that's going to be way more enlightening and way more exciting. We are excited to bring on our friend, and he's joining an exclusive club here on Podcast PD, and that is our buddy Rich Czyz, who we're bringing up into the show, and he is the first 3-time guest in the history of Podcast PD. So, ladies and gentlemen, Rich Czyz. What's up, Rich?
Hey guys, how are we?
We're good. We're
Good,
it's
man.
November. We do what we do.
I mean, I guess when our friends keep writing books, we're just gonna keep having them on the show. So keep going. See how
Yeah,
many more you can get
keep
here.
trying.
Rich, catch us up. It's been a couple of years since you've been on the show. So where are you at? What are you doing? Get us up to speed on all things you.
Yeah, so Rich Czyz, still the principal over at Yardville Elementary in Hamilton Township in New Jersey, and just published my 4th book for Dave Burgess Consulting. So yeah, that's kind of where I am. I'm now a proud Penn State dad.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah, thanks. So my daughter's a freshman this year. I grew up a Michigan fan, so it hurts me to wear the sweatshirt, but it's okay.
Anything for our children, right?
Exactly.
Ooh, that's tough.
I mean, so what's she going to study?
Right now she's doing economics and political science.
So not a teacher. Good for her. Choosing a different path.
Exactly.
All right. So, Rich, you are the author of the brand new book, Autopilot, Practical Productivity for School Leaders. Now, we don't do a book interview without asking the question, why did you write this book?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it came out of the pandemic. It's a book that's been kind of in several different forms for about 5 years now. So some of the different strategies that are in the book came out of the time when we were sent home. So, while I was sitting at home trying to stay connected with 45 plus teachers and 300 some odd students, it was incredibly difficult trying to manage all that. So some of the strategies that are in there kind of came out of that. I believe that we're in a time where our educators are incredibly overburdened, right? We have a lot on our plate. And I think it's about getting rid of some of that stuff to maybe make it a little bit easier for everybody.
Well, that's as good as a reason to write a book as I've ever heard. There's a need. You've got the knowledge. You've got experience. How did you source the information? What was the inspiration aside from, the pandemic and kind of doing what you just talked about? Where did it all really come from?
Yeah, so I actually threw myself into a ton of different productivity books. So, by some of the big names out there, Getting Things Done, Cal Newport, right, was a big inspiration. I was listening to his podcast a lot. So there's a lot of productivity theory that you'll see in there. But then it was just trying different things that would work for me or not work for me, figuring out how to go about being more productive, how to go about being more efficient. And I think from all of those different, I kind of put in the dedication to the book. I thanked my kids for listening to the productivity podcast that I was listening to in the car, because they absolutely hated it. But they allowed me to listen to it. So there's a lot that I kind of gleaned from that and then took and applied to, my role as a school principal, but also kind of seeing what others are doing within the education world to be more productive and, explore more of that work-life balance.
I love it. And we're going to hit on some of those things today. Now, for you who's listening or watching, we certainly want you to go pick up a copy of Rich's book. We're going to have a copy of it, not a copy of it, but a link to it in our show notes where you can pick it up on Amazon. That's where we're going to link to it. So make sure you check out our show notes at podcastpd.com/153. Rich, let's get into some of the content that you're sharing in the book. Now, you were kind enough to send AJ and I each a copy of the book. So I got the opportunity, as did AJ, to kind of go through it. And in the book, you talk about pain points. So these reoccurring tasks that pull leaders away from what is the most meaningful work. What do you think is the most overlooked pain point in school leadership today?
Wow, that's an excellent question. Because I think there's a lot of obvious ones, right? I always start with the email and the inbox. I think that's a difficult one for school leaders, right? Look at the 80 to 90 emails that are coming across my inbox each day, some of them which are worthwhile, some of them which are other people's priorities, and some of which are, just things that need to go into the trash. But as far as overlooked, I think it's the amount of things that come to our plates, right? Come to our hands. So a lot of times we are putting out those fires from others all day long, and unfortunately, that keeps us from our most important work. So I think that's a struggle for many administrators, many school leaders out there. Sometimes, I almost feel like the solution vending machine, right? Somebody comes, pushes a button, and suddenly I'm supposed to, dispense a solution for them to whatever problem it is that they're having at the moment. So I think that's probably an overlooked one, right? Is, we're leading many people, we're leading students, and I think unfortunately we're trying to solve their problems a lot of times rather than trying to get done what we need to get done.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about putting out fires, and AJ and I have had conversations, and we've all had conversations with administrators about, the fires they put out. But if you put out a lot of fires, you might get burned at some point. So let's switch it to a little bit about burnout. How can school leaders identify what might be burning them out, and then what they can do to kind of alleviate some of that pressure?
Yeah, I think it's this idea that productivity is busyness, right? So when you're looking at your schedule as a school leader, you're trying to maximize every moment of the day. And I think that's oftentimes when leaders can get burnout, is when they are trying to take care of everything for everyone. So a lot of, I think, what needs to be done is promoting strategy over reaction, right? And being more proactive, putting those systems in place, delegating to others to make sure that, you're not the only one who is taking on all of these roles. I think it's okay to delegate. I think it's often okay to close your door as a school leader, right? I talked, I think last week I wrote a blog post about the open door policy, right? And how it's killing our productivity. And, we've all kind of seen as school leaders that, everyone who says, oh, I have an open door policy, anybody can come to me at any time with anything. And I think when you're doing that, I think that's when you take on so much that you're not able to really move forward in your own leadership. So, I think it is really about taking a step back, right? It's eliminating some things. It's delegating to others, finding those that can help you with those things. You don't want to be the micromanager of everything. And I think if you can get away from that, I think that's really the best way to do it.
I love that delegation piece, because I am not a school administrator. At one point I aspired to be one, but that ship has sailed. But as one who wants to serve his school and contribute to school climate and culture, I try to be somebody as a teacher who is a resource and provides value to school administrators. My school this year transitioned from one principal after 4 years to a brand new principal. And I made a point of, back in August, scheduling a one-on-one meeting to let the new principal know, here's who I am, here's all the things that I've been doing for the last couple of years, and in longer in some cases, how can we be on the same page, and how can I support you? So having a principal who's willing to delegate certainly also makes a big difference too.
Yeah. Even in choosing the title for the book, I specifically chose school leaders to avoid that term administrators, right? Because I think we do have a lot of teachers, educators, staff members who are school leaders, right? Who don't necessarily have a specific title that makes them a school leader, but who are still leading within the school. So that was an intentional choice in terms of the title. Within the book, I talk about delegating and elevating, right? Because I think that's what you do when you are finding others to take on some of those roles within the building. One of the examples that I like to talk about is our fifth grade students who do our morning announcements, right? I've been in other buildings where it's the school principal or the counselor who's doing the announcements. I work with our fifth graders for 2 weeks at the beginning of the year. We have an entire system for how the announcements work. And it really gives them that ownership over the announcements. They plan for everything. They have a template that they use. And, once I'm done training them after that 2 week period, I know that any one of them can do it on any given day. So it really is, not only about delegating to other staff members, but also students as well.
Rich, as we go through this, but I just want to go back to the email portion of this, right? Because email to me is my kryptonite. I can't stand email. I feel like I always have to be on the lookout for email. It's like, oh, did you read my email? It's like, no, I'm kind of walking the hallways and sitting in classrooms right now, so not really checking email. But we get email from vendors, we get email from parents, we get emails from teachers and other staff and district people, but it takes up hours, right? And when I get 20, 30, 40 emails a day, my brain is spinning, right? So the school leader could adopt a boundary or system around emails. So let's start tomorrow. Which one would, what do you think would reduce the stress the most? And why do you think we struggle with these boundaries when it comes to email?
Yeah, I think the biggest piece is we're kind of drowning in our inbox all day long. One of the biggest strategies that I utilize is what I call a boat. So I took the tagline from Jaws, you're going to need a bigger boat.
Of course.
But in this case, boat is blocked off answering time. So there are 3 specific times that I answer emails during the day. So I normally do one in the morning. So that's either first thing upon arriving at school, or if there's another piece that I'm dealing with, I'll do it shortly after arrival of our students. I do another one midday, and then I do one before the end of the day. So I try to keep all of my emails to those 3 times. In the morning, I'm normally dealing with the emails that may have come in overnight. In the mid-afternoon, I'm normally dealing with emails from the morning that I have to respond to. I'm also very big on delegating a lot of those emails. So if it's something that somebody else can handle for me, I will pass it off. And then that last piece, which I think is key, I shut my email off by 4:30. So, I'm doing one last check of emails at the end of the day, seeing what I need to address at that time, what can get carried over to the morning. Is this something that I can deal with tomorrow? And then shutting it off at that point. I've taken it off my phone, which I think, for school leaders, it really allows me that separation to then come home and be with family versus still being the school principal at that time. Mm-hmm. So I think if I could say to any school leader, start there, right? Don't live in your inbox all day. If you can get away from that idea that you are ready and available whenever anybody wants to email you. And I think once you start responding that way, I think people expect it. So, even putting a message at the bottom of your email to say, hey, these are the 3 times that I answer emails, and you can expect something within 24 hours, perfectly acceptable for school leaders to do.
And do your staff know, or do the parents know that you have that signature in your email?
Yeah, so I have something at the bottom of my email that lets them know. I think the other piece of that is if you're setting that expectation, that you're also responsible for that with your staff members as well. So even if I'm typing, if I do happen to type an email that comes after 4:30, I'm scheduling that for the following morning to go to staff members, right? So that I'm not interrupting their time at home as well.
Agree. I totally agree with that.
Have you found that by doing that, Rich, that you are getting less email, or are you getting emails at those concentrated times? Or, I mean, how is this actually impacting practice?
Yeah, so I do feel like it does minimize the number of emails that I do get. I do feel like that has kind of streamlined it over the years. I do feel like I get less emails. The emails still come in all day long, but I do find that like parents, families, and staff members kind of respect and respond to that window. I've seen less parents kind of emailing overnight than they have in the past. Sometimes there's still some stuff waiting for me in the morning, but I would say it's been considerably less.
Does this have any impact on how you're available by phone, either during the day or after hours?
No, and I think as far as our staff goes, they kind of know that I'm available at any time that they need me if it's a true emergency. There's been a couple of examples where we've had to talk about what a true emergency is, right, with certain staff members. But I think for the most part, like I said, I'm respecting their boundaries as far as being at home with their families. And I think because of that, I think they are willing to respect my boundaries as well. Right. I think having the conversation up front about that is important for school leaders. Right. But I'm also finding that a lot of our kind of our newer generation of teachers who are coming in have much greater expectations in terms of that work-life balance than some of us as educators had coming in, and were taught a little bit differently about how much time and effort that you're putting in at different hours of the day.
Got it. Now, Rich, in being very intentional about using the word school leaders, I've also picked up that the idea of autopilot is something you're also very intentional about, because you redefine automation as something that should involve human systems, right? So what is a task that school leaders assume they must personally handle, but could actually be automated?
Yeah, so I do kind of redefine automation as being able to be done by a human being versus technology, right? We often think of the automated systems as all technology based, but one of the big things that I think I kind of struggle with is discipline, right? So
you getting in trouble a lot?
It's always sitting in the principal's office. That's me, right? But I think automating that, I have used our office staff to kind of build a system around that. So one of the pieces that I was struggling with was, student ends up in the office. I'm talking to them about what they did. They're not necessarily telling me the truth about what they did. Now I'm going back upstairs to talk to the teacher, what exactly happened. Now I'm coming back downstairs to talk to the student. And in the meantime, I'm trying to communicate to the teacher what the consequence might be for that student, as well as communicate with the parents what has happened in the situation. So what I found is that using email, and I'm also using one of our office staff members, I do an email that kind of communicates all the important information to the parent, to the teacher, and then one of our office staff members takes that email. I also copy her on it and automatically updates our system, right? So that keeps track of everything. We have a binder where she puts everything. We have a point system where students earn points for certain consequences. So she keeps track of all of those things and kind of saves me that time.
Within automation, can you talk a little bit about your workflow and some of what you do, like in a typical day? What are some of the things that you have automated, and kind of what is that day like?
Yeah. So, I guess one of the big things, as far as like, I'll take the communication piece. So I use something called S'more, which, many educators have been using for many years. It's been around, I want to say I've been a user for close to 15 years or something like that at this point. But as far as the communication piece, I will send an update to our staff every Friday, and I will send an update to our parents roughly every week or every other week. And what I will do to automate that is I will batch all of that work. So I will create newsletters, that will go out for the next, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks in one sitting, right? So it's an easy cut and paste. It tends to make that system a little bit easier for me. But that might be like after I'm checking my email for the morning, after I'm going to visit classrooms, then coming and sitting in my office for an hour, closing the door, creating newsletters for the next 6 to 8 weeks. That tends to help me stick to one thing, right? When I can kind of close that door, put on a little mood music to, kind of get me productive in that moment. But then once those are done, that's now 8 weeks of newsletters that I don't have to worry about, right? There may come something that I'm going to add to one of those things. The nice piece about S'more is that it's live, right? So I will also schedule that email to go out to parents or teachers on that given date. I think that's a big part of being productive is being able to schedule those things. I'm a huge fan of that schedule button within my Gmail, right? Because I use that all the time, whether it's, like I said, waiting to send something to somebody until 8 a.m. or scheduling something that's going out 6 weeks from now. It's from there, that gives me time to then do the other things that I need to do.
Rich, in writing the book, I am sure that there was some time for you to reflect on kind of what you do and, again, your workflow and the things that you automate. And a lot of what you share is what has worked for you and what you've gathered from others. Did going through that process further push you to change anything that you do? Has the book led to a change in you because of, I guess, writing it?
Yeah, I think so. I think it has made me look for those different ways to be more efficient, right? I have a 4-month calendar in my office, right? So on their dry erase board, I have everything up there for the 4 months. This year, I just started to do a complete digital calendar for our entire staff for the entire year. So sometime in August, I sat down. This is the first year that I've done this, but I put all of our calendar dates on a Google Doc for all of our teachers. I update it as we go along. So if there are things added to that schedule, I'll add them now. But I kind of wanted everybody to have the big picture. That was kind of inspired by the 4-month calendar that I have in my office. Because a lot of times I think when you're looking at that big picture piece, you kind of realize what the important things are within that schedule, right? So that was something that kind of was born out of this, figuring out some of those different things that are still helpful to be more productive, right? So that calendar kind of came out of it. A lot of other stuff that I do in the summer, I think is very helpful to be prepared for the year. And I think that was my big goal going into the school year after writing the book was how can I be more prepared, right? What more can I do when I'm sitting there by myself quietly in the summer with none of those distractions to be more prepared so that I do have more time during the school year when some of those distractions do pop up.
Well, I'm sold. I guess that means we got to bring you back next year after you go through this and you be a 4-time guest.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it.
Now, Rich, you hit on a lot of things right there, talking about like the planning aspect of it, right? And something that I want to talk about here, you have a chapter called Conquering Procrastination and Perfectionism. Now, you write, I can find ways to procrastinate my procrastination. You're that good. Sir, I challenge you to procrastination, because if you want somebody who procrastinates, it's me. But if you want, we can talk about that later. So with that, what do you think procrastination versus perfectionism looks like for a school administrator? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think the perfectionism piece is hard. The example that I always use is like you're writing a parent letter, and I will write that letter, and it could be a simple, hey, here's, I talked to your child today. Here's something that happened today. Just wanted to make you aware of it. So either a letter or an email, something like that. And I will write that email. I will share it with 3 people in the office, my counselor, 4 other people to take a look at it. I will come back. I will make changes to it, and 2 hours later, I still haven't sent that message to the parent. And I think that perfectionism of wanting to make sure that I have the exact right language in there can often be harmful, right? There's a lot of times when the message just needs to be said. And I think the more you kind of tinker and play with it, those perfectionist tendencies tend to harm you as an administrator, right? I think it does sometimes waste time doing things that you don't necessarily need to do. So as far as the procrastination piece and kind of how that ties in, I think it's the distractions, right? It's, a lot of times as the school leader, you want to do the simple things that are there, and they're the kind of easy things that are just hanging there, versus getting down to the most important work that you should be doing. And that's when we tend to procrastinate. Oh, let me do this, right? Because I know this is much easier than what I actually should be doing. So I think for both of those things, if school leaders can start to be more intentional about how they do things, I think that can be very helpful in terms of being more efficient within the school day.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because we have all these things, and like the checklist gets longer and longer. And like for me, personally, when I start working on them, I'm like, is this good enough? Like, no, I have to change this, or this word doesn't sound right. Is this too, is it too soft? Is it too hard? How's it coming across? Is this the message I'm trying to portray? How's a teacher going to take this? What are they going to understand it? Like, email is tough because it's just like a text message. You don't know the tone, and then you don't want to try to be funny. You don't want to try to be loose, but like, you got to be specific. So that perfectionism and procrastination, they kind of go hand in hand. And in the ADHD brain and the actions of people with ADHD, that morphs, right? And it really makes it harder, and you start going down a different rabbit hole. So, besides some of the ways you just spoke, like, what is your day? I know you said you have that plan, you have your monthly view. Do you have a daily view? Is there things that you do that you're like, I just need to check this off and not worry about every task being so meticulous, and it's just like, here's the productivity, it's done, I know it's going to be okay, and I'll get to the bigger part of it later on? What does it look like for you each day?
Yeah, so I have a notebook. I start a notebook each August for the school year, and within that notebook goes everything. So any task that I'm trying to finish, I will jot down in that notebook. I will put a little checkbox next to it. Once that is done, I know that task will be finished. As long as it's written in my notebook, I will get to it. So, I think that's the biggest piece of this is a lot of times your checklist may be other people's checklists. It may be priorities for other people that aren't necessarily your priorities. Within that notebook, I do try to outline what my major priorities for the day are, right? So at the end of each day, I do a little reflection in which I call it a reflect, review, and to do. So I will think about the day, Here's what I was successful with. Here's what still needs to be done tomorrow. And then I will come up with my to-do list for the next day. So once I'm putting that in my notebook for the following day, I know that those are the major things that I want to get done at the beginning of the day as soon as I possibly can, right? So that idea of eating the frog, right? You want to get your hardest work done earliest in the day. It's that whole idea of working out first thing in the morning versus waiting until after work because you may never get there, right? Sure. But once I have that in my notebook, and I close my notebook for the day, I know that it's still there for tomorrow. So along with those tasks that go in the notebook, everything else goes in there as well. Parent communication, discipline conversations that I've had with a student, anything that we're doing for professional development, meeting notes go in that notebook. So everything kind of lives in there. And that's how I kind of keep track of my day to day. In addition to some of those other systems like the digital calendar, the wall calendar. But probably my number one system is that notebook.
Yeah, I have my notebook as well, so I'm totally with you. So one more question about this. I know this is not everybody's issue. This is more of some people, me. No matter how much you put in your notebook, how many things do you carry over to the next day, or once it's in your notebook on that day, you're getting it done regardless of the day, the time, the drama? Like, is that your philosophy? You get it done, or just I can move it over to tomorrow?
Yeah, so I don't keep my notebook from a day-to-day perspective. What happens is I will have lists upon lists, right? So If I turn the page and I'm adding another list or checklist of things that need to be done, I clip my notebook to the page where everything is finished, right? So if I finish everything that's on my list for today, I'm clipping that page and now I'm starting fresh for tomorrow. But I may still have a task from several days ago that I haven't finished. My notebook is kind of clipped up to that date to make sure that I'm still going back. At the bottom of each page, once I'm finished with all the checklist items on that day, I will put a large checkbox with a large check mark at the bottom of the page. So I know everything within that page has been finished. So, there are definitely things that carry over, tomorrow, 2 days, 3 days down the road, if I don't feel like it's a priority for me compared to some of the other things that are on my plate at that point.
Gotcha. I'd love to see your notebook one day, Rich, if we can. I only because I know what mine looks like, and I hear what you're saying, and I'd love to see how similar and or different our vibes here are.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got a question for both of you, and this goes back a couple minutes when you talk about wanting to get that message right in that email, to parent or somebody. Have either of you ever tried or thought about sending a video message, like using Loom or some other type of technology where you sent a video and the person on the other end could see you and hear you?
So I know I've used video for general messages that go out to everyone. I've never really used a video message for like an individual message that I'm sending to a parent. But if it is something that impacts the whole school, I will often use a video to kind of explain that. Sometimes it might be an instructional video, right? They have to follow steps in order to do something. So I've used it that way, but never for an individual parent to send a message.
Personally, I have not. And now you say that, Chris, it's something I should think about, as it comes time for like holidays and stuff like that. But I have not, but I do love the idea of it. So everything I do is newsletter and or email.
I only throw it out because, again, as a classroom teacher, I've done this in the past and haven't had any issue with it this year where I felt the need to. But like I have sent videos to students who have been absent for an extended period of time to say, hey, get a little FaceTime where I literally like mention them by name. Hey, here's what you've missed. Here's what you can do. So, I mean, teacher to student, I have found that to be a successful strategy. And by using Loom, I know when they've watched it because I get that little, somebody watched the video. And if I only sent it to the one person, I'm pretty sure they're the one who checked it out.
I didn't realize it did that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think as you're saying that, Chris, I think sometimes the issues we have with email are tone, right? And somebody reading something into your tone. So as you're suggesting that might be a much better way to kind of deflate some issues, right? Like if you're, kind of speaking in a certain tone within a voice or a video message versus the way it comes across in an email, it might have a different impact on that parent.
Yeah. Or, I mean, not every person is going to want to be even on video, but I'm sure there's a number of tools out there that you could even just send an audio message via email to say, hey, here's my voice. And again, you go back to tone. There's no mistaking your tone if they can hear you and or see you.
Yeah, I think that's an awesome idea.
Every once in a while I have one. Rich, a lot of what you've talked about in the book and, here tonight, and, thank you for being the first 3-time guest on Podcast PD, comes down to culture. And you talk in the book about the importance of creating a culture of school productivity. And a lot of what you've shared here tonight, school leaders, administrators, teachers, again, these school people can certainly pull the nuggets out and implement them. What is a small cultural shift that a school leader could introduce to the whole building, to their colleagues, either, if you're the administrator, you're a teacher in a faculty meeting, that you can actually get people to buy into?
Yeah, so one of the simple ones that I talked about in the book is buying a gong, right, and using a done gong.
Just to clarify, he said gong.
Gong,
G-O-N-G.
Yes, correct. So celebrating done, right, and finished with something. And I think not only with staff members, but also with students as well, right? Because, a lot of times we struggle to get things done. And I think celebrating that with our staff and our students can be an important step in allowing everybody to feel that way, right? Think about as a teacher when, you're tasked with doing those, 90 something report cards that you have to do, or, and you kind of look at that task as something that's dreadful for you to try to get done and finish. But once you're finished, celebrating that win, right? It is an accomplishment to get those things done. And I think if we can kind of promote that within the building, I think that's something that's important for everybody to kind of realize. I think just by trying to be more efficient in what I'm doing, it is spread to others. One of the stories I talk about in Autopilot is one of our office staff members. We were doing end of year picnics offsite. They're actually right across the street from our school building. But we used to have the kids come back to the building to sign out for the day. And she kind of looked at me and said, why are we doing this? Like, why don't we just have them sign out across the street? And I really didn't have a good answer for her, right? It was not something that was a safety issue or anything like that. And when she kind of suggested it, I said, sure, let's try it. Let's see how it goes, right? So I think when you are promoting those types of efficiencies and productivities, I think others kind of jump on board with it as well.
I like it. Rich, AJ, you have any more questions? I just have one more.
No, go for it. I'm gonna reach out to Rich separately. This is more. Go for it. All
right. So, Rich, this is actually a follow-up to what kind of we just talked about. So this culture piece. Yep. So to the person who is watching this or listening to this, and they go out and they buy the book, they read it. Thank you to them for doing that. Thank you for listening to the podcast. From your point of view, somebody who consumes this content, what is the worst action step they could take based on this? If somebody who misunderstands what you're saying, what's the worst thing they could do after reading the book and hearing what you're saying? What's the misstep?
So I think the misstep is eliminating things to add more things to your plate, right? I think that's the biggest piece of this that is the misconception, right? Is that we're trying to automate, we're trying to delegate to add more things to our plate. I think we want to tackle the things that are important and be better at doing those things versus taking on another 15 to 20 things because we've eliminated some stuff. So I think that's probably the biggest misconception, that those who kind of struggle with productivity, there's always more things you can add to your plate, right? But I believe that those that struggle truly with productivity are the ones who are, saving more time to add more things.
Gotcha. There you go.
Most of
All right.
most of
Yeah. So we've been talking with Rich Czyz. He is the author of Autopilot, Practical Productivity for School Leaders. And that doesn't just mean you're a principal or an administrator, because you can lead without a title, as he was able to clarify for us. Rich, would you be willing to talk about some of the podcasts you listen to on productivity in just a second?
Sure, absolutely.
All right. Before we share what we've been listening to, do you find value in our conversations here on Podcast PD? Do you want to support our efforts in creating quality content for you? Well, guess what? You can. You can give back to Podcast PD on a monthly or a yearly basis. You can become an executive producer of the show. We want to welcome back Stephanie Scrocky, who is an executive producer. So we got some swag to send her way. Thank you, Stephanie, for being an executive producer. And if you'd be interested in supporting what we do here on Podcast PD, visit podcastpd.com/executive producer. All right. And now we're going to talk about some stuff we've been listening to. All right, AJ, you put some stuff in the notes, which gives Rich a couple more seconds to think about what he wants to talk about. So, AJ, what have you been listening to podcast-wise?
All right, so I'm going away from like the educational podcast here, because I'm still listening to a lot of leadership and educational podcasts, but there's two podcasts that just caught my ear from when I was listening to like ESPN radio. Right, this is like ABC content from like 2020, right? The first one is called Cold-Blooded Mystery in Alaska, and it's about a doctor who was murdered in Alaska, right? I finished that one. It was okay. I recommend it if you want like a crime drama, right? It was cool.
Oh my God.
Thank you. The one I'm going to tell you about now is called The Hand in the Window. This is brand new, and it just started like 3 weeks ago. And here's the rundown. In rural Ohio, a kidnapped woman risks her life by calling 911 with her captor's phone. After she is rescued, investigators turn their attention to her kidnapper, a man named Sean Great. As detectives interview Great, they realize that he may be behind the disappearances of multiple missing women in the area. Look, it's episode 3, and I'm sitting here trying to figure out like what this guy is really up to. So,
oh my goodness!
All right, you and this playback stuff. If you're down for a good drama, a good crime drama, this is like true stuff. I think you should give these podcasts a listen.
What drew how did you come across these? Where did these recommendations come from?
I was listening to ESPN radio, right? I do it through the app now. So I listen to it, and during like commercial times, or maybe it's through Odyssey. I don't remember. I was listening to Keith or something like that. And like these came on, I was like, I go for a good crime drama. And I think it was like over the summer where like my brain was just fried with scheduling and like education nonsense. So I needed something to get me away from it. And I started that one. And then when Mystery in Alaska stopped, they had a preview for this Hand in the Window. I was like, okay, play. So here we are.
All right. Rich is going to share his in a second. Mine is real quick. I haven't been listening to anything new that I haven't talked about before. So I'm going to take just a couple of seconds here to invite you as a listener of Podcast PD to participate in the 2025 House of EdTech Smackdown. That is my last episode of the calendar year for House of EdTech. And if you're listening to this before December 12th, send me, go to chrisnesi.com/feedback or /voicemail, and tell me what EdTech tool, tip, trick, AI, something EdTech that you have loved here in 2025. And I will assemble all of the submissions I get, and that will be the last episode of 2025. Go to chrisnesi.com/voicemail or /feedback for more information. Rich, enlighten us more.
Yeah, so I think as far as productivity, the biggest one that I listen to is Cal Newport. It's called A Deep Life. And he has written several books, Deep Work, Slow Productivity, A World Without Email, right? He has that entire book about how to improve our email system. And so I glean a lot from him and then try to pull that into our education world. The other podcast that I'm absolutely in love with is called How I Write. So, you know, having written 4 books, I love just the process of writing, and How I Write talks to different authors about their writing process. So sometimes it is kind of the geeky stuff about words and different phrases and things like that. But you wouldn't imagine that someone can talk for an hour about their writing and be as interesting as it possibly is. So one of the most recent ones that I listened to was Mitch Albom. So, you know, he did a great job talking about his new book and his writing process. So I love listening to How I Write as well.
Actually, because you talked about productivity, AJ knows where I'll recommend this as opposed to just shamelessly promoting my own stuff. My favorite productivity podcast is the 5 a.m. Miracle with my buddy Jeff Sanders. So, Rich, if you're not familiar with that, definitely check that out as well.
Yeah, I am familiar with that. I love that one as well.
It really changed once he had kids, which I can now appreciate and really take what he says seriously. Because when you're in your 20s, no kids, and telling me how to change my life, I got a tough time.
For you there.
Rich, did you have fun with us tonight?
It was, as always, gentlemen.
Yes. All right. And he will be back in 2026 because we're going to have to follow up and see how all the changes in autopiloting went this year. And AJ, it was good to talk to you, my friend.
That was good. It's good being with both of you. Much appreciated,
Yes.
Rich.
Absolutely. And let's chat, AJ, as we
Yes.
move forward. It sounds like you have some more questions.
I have so many.
All right. You who is listening, thank you for listening to Podcast PD. Give us your thoughts on this conversation or any conversation we've had. You can send us an email, feedback@podcastpd.com is the email address, or you can send us a voicemail. Go to podcastpd.com/feedback. And we look forward to tackling your questions and bringing you more great guests. We will be back for episode
154.
What episode would this be? 154. And that'll be Sunday, December 28th, 2025. AJ and I will discuss if that will be live or something we pre-record, but that's when you can expect something from us as we wrap up 2025. Rich, your contact information and everything is going to be in our show notes, as well as a link to purchase the book, which everybody should go do. And that's going to be out at podcastpd.com/153. Rich, give us the final word.
It has been a pleasure, and I want everybody to find a way to run the school before the school runs you.
I like that.
All right. We'll see you next time. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, AJ. Wave goodbye. Say goodbye.